Welcome back to the Dark Corner. I am your host, Cheese Film, and today's movie is Darkstar. Darkstar is a 1975 sci-fi horror movie directed by John Carpenter and written by Dan O'Brien. I think I might cut down on these intros a little bit because we talk about a lot of like the basically what I would say in the intro. We do talk about a lot, like the fact that Dan O'Brien would go on to do Alien.
Yeah, of course we're going to mention that.
And John Carpenter would go on to do Halloween.
Are we on right now?
Yeah, I'm recording.
Okay, because they worked on this, got in fights, and never worked together again.
Wow.
But still didn't have anything bad to say about the other guy. They just couldn't work together.
You know, I found a lot of people like that are kind of like the Mythbusters people. They don't like each other. They're not friends. They're just.
Well, I guess that the guy with the mustache is on the spectrum or something.
I think they're both on the spectrum.
I think the other guy couldn't just get along. If they both were, then they didn't gel. But who cares? They're pretty clever.
They are really clever, and they work good together.
Yeah.
And a lot of that they attribute to not liking each other. So they're not just going to be each other's yes men. They will counter the other one's points.
Right.
And
you kind of need that.
You do kind of need that, especially in like a duo like this. Like Penn and Teller, they're not friends either.
Yeah, I would never thought that.
Never would have thought that, especially working so close to the other guy like this for so
decades.
long.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is Darkstar. Is this John Carpenter's like first movie?
This was a student film that he made at like some Southern California university, UC something, and it was 68 minutes long or something like that. And then they sold it to the production company, which now I can't remember. I forgot to write it down. Harris something, and he wanted them to add stuff. So a lot of the alien parts with the alien, they added just to pad out the runtime to 83 minutes.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because the Blu-ray I watched had a foreword by Dan about how this is supposed to be a comedy, and how when they sold it and it was playing in theaters, they'd go around to the different theaters just to kind of see how people were, receptive to the movie, and there was barely an audience for it. He said they went to one theater, and the manager, he's like, I'm Dan O'Brien. This is John Carpenter. We made this movie. Can we talk to the audience? And the theater manager was like, what audience? And he let him in the room.
Too bad.
There was like 7 people in there, and none of them were laughing or having a good time. They looked like a morgue, he said.
Wow.
They were just...
That's too bad. I think it's pretty good. I watched it when I was a teenager, and when we were watching it again, I think I watched it one other time after that, but when I was watching it this time, I really enjoyed it, and it was pretty funny, and I like the humor. I get it, and I don't know. I looked at it with different eyes, but it's pretty good. It's definitely worth checking out.
It is worth checking out. It's not only just for the fact that this is John Carpenter's first film, and the guy who wrote this would go on to be the writer for Alien.
Yeah.
It's interesting fundamentally watching this movie because it is a student film, and they utilize a lot of different production techniques, such as like the miniatures and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're really good, but lots of them are bad.
A lot of them are really good. And I've been watching a lot of these like Star Wars ripoffs, like Battle Beyond the Stars and Star Crash, and they don't look good in their special effects.
Well, Battle Beyond the Stars doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't look like Star Wars either.
It doesn't look like Star Wars, but this one looked better, I would say, than both Battle Beyond the Stars and Star Crash.
The bombs
especially,
they looked really good.
Yeah,
they looked big.
And when they were shooting them at the planets and stuff like that, it all looked like it was bigger than just a little miniature toy.
It looked. They did that camera work was good.
And all that. It was really well done, in my opinion. And so, like, this movie's really good for that. I don't know if I can suggest this to people because of how dry the comedy is.
Yeah, you got to know your audience with this movie, and I still am going to recommend it, but like Mikey yesterday, going ape shit because he just couldn't take it. Excuse me. You're going to know right away whether you're going to sit through the whole movie or not, because it's about kind of the same thing all the way through.
All the way through.
Except like when they're trying to convince the bomb.
Yeah.
Like, all right. The Darkstar people, it's the name of their ship. They go around blowing up planets that are unstable so that colonization later on doesn't have to deal with them.
Right.
And the bombs are intelligent. And one of them, they go through an asteroid field that's electrified with a vortex, a lot of technobabble BS.
Yeah.
And
pretty accurate
and it becomes
technobabble,
sentient.
too.
Yeah. It is pretty accurate.
Yeah, I was because I was explaining to Mikey, like, because he's like, why does everybody use parsec?
Yeah.
I was like, well, because it's an actual term. It's a measure of distance, not time, because Star Wars used it the exact opposite way.
Opposite way.
So like, and all of the stuff, like the EMP astro field that was coming through, and it wiped out a lot of their systems. Like all of this stuff is kind of based in science.
Yeah.
So if you like the science part of sci-fi, like this is a great movie to watch.
It is pretty good.
Yeah. And
like another thing, they're just hanging out in the control room.
Yeah, they're just hanging
blah
out.
blah. And then something goes wrong, and they spring into action, and it looks like Apollo 13.
Yeah, like they know what they're doing.
Right, they know what they're doing. It's not as technically accurate or zero gravity accurate.
No.
But when they spring into action, it's pretty cool.
And for this being a college film,
Yeah.
a lot of attention was paid to stuff like that. And even with how, like when the elevator malfunctions, like that was shot on the floor.
Right, in a dormitory.
Yeah, and they just rotated it because that's all they had. And you can't build an elevator shaft or really film in one. So they did that. And there are parts in it where I'm like, well, how is he doing it like that? Because he's like suspended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When he's in the halfway through the elevator hanging out of it, he's suspended. So however they did that, like he would have to have held himself up, or they've got some wires somewhere that aren't shown.
Yeah, you can't see them
at all. The only time the effect kind of really was like a blaring obvious is the beach ball alien.
Yeah, it is literally a beach ball with spray paint on it.
Which even then, that's a very clever thing to do.
Are cool.
It's got to be puppeted by somebody.
Yeah.
But you can't tell where the puppeteer is, which is something a lot of movies like this would falter on. Like you can tell where the puppeteer is. You can you can see the strings sometimes. Even in Star Wars, you can see some of that up until the special editions where they took that stuff out. This being that kind of movie, having a shoestring budget did really well, making it feel like it's a creature there, not just a beach ball there.
Right, that there's somebody's throwing at you.
Yeah, it would tickle him. Like it had a personality. It's bouncing a lot. Like it wasn't.
It did have a good personality. and it wasn't Jim Henson.
No, and it was in and it was out just as it came in. It was one of the fastest introductions, exits I've seen in one of these movies so far. But back to it, Mr. O'Brien said when he was looking at all those theaters and the audience reaction to this movie, he would say that, well, if I can't make them laugh, I'll make them scream.
Yeah,
and that's where Alien came in.
And you do get a little bit of sense of that. I know John Carpenter didn't direct Alien, but when they move the camera a lot.
They do
in low budget. In the early 70s, and it's real smooth and it's effective. They don't usually do that in cheap movies. Move the camera. It's usually set up.
Yeah, and you move around the camera.
Yeah, everybody moves around it. But he moved the camera, and it's striking. It's really good.
It is, and it feels like the predecessor to Alien.
It does.
It really
in
does
a lot of
feel
ways.
that way. It's like, even like if I was just going to broad tone it, like a bunch of regular Joe Schmoes get on. Yeah, a bunch of regular Joe Schmoes get on a spaceship. There's an alien on the spaceship. Something goes wrong. and they all basically die.
Yeah.
Like, one of them is jettisoned out into space, not to be seen again. Like, a lot of those are parallels with Alien.
Yeah.
But even the feel of it, like, John Carpenter didn't work on Alien, but the atmosphere of Alien is very similar to this. The sound design of Alien is kind of similar to this. It really does feel like this is the film they showed 20th Century Fox to be like, hey, can I make an Alien movie?
Yeah, it'd be like this.
Yeah.
And they like, sure. But speaking of sound design, John Carpenter did the music to it too, and it's really good.
It is really good.
It's good and sci-fi, and it's good and creepy when it needs to be.
I think it's really cool that he does his own music for his own movies, because it's not, you don't see that very often.
No, never. Not anymore, especially.
Man, I want to say it's the new Insidious movie. The guy who plays the dude from Insidious.
Jason Patrick?
Patrick something, I think.
Yeah, it is Patrick.
Guy. Yeah. He did the end credits song. They have an end credit song for Insidious that he does with Ghost, I want to say, or another one, but he helped do it all. But other than him, John Carpenter's the only one who really does this. John Carpenter's son, I guess, did the new Halloween, but he didn't make the new Halloween.
Right.
So it's really unique to him to do that kind of stuff. And to see the first steps he would take to then go on a year later and make Halloween.
Or two, yeah.
One or two.
But shortly thereafter.
Yeah, and make it with...
I think he did Assault on Precinct 13 and then Halloween.
I think you're right.
Oh, he did that Assault on Precinct 13, and then he did a TV movie called I'm Being Watched, or Someone's Watching Me, or something like that. And then he did Halloween. So, like, right there.
Yeah, right there. And the music in Halloween is magnificent.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah. And it's, it's really funny that, like, the most popular sci-fi horror movie and the most popular slasher movie came from this movie.
Yeah, really.
Like, this branched off both of them.
Yeah.
These two people would go on to do that. Yeah,
they're making them because they're making a new Alien Romulus.
They're making the new Alien, and it had the new Halloween trilogy.
Yeah,
a couple years back. So it's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing.
This movie really put that step forward. On the bonus features for this, they have an interview with. I wrote it down and I don't know where I put it. But he was a novelist. It's on the back.
Phil K. Dick?
Hand me that. It's on the back of this. Alan Dean.
Oh.
Alan Dean Foster, who I either wrote a novel about this movie or the novel this movie's based on.
Well, I think it's an original idea, so it probably is after.
I think, so the person interviewing him is like, well, I noticed your book has a lot more detail than the movie does. And he was like, yeah, that's what you get when you write a novel.
Right.
Because you've got to stretch everything out. So I think
and you
the
can't
novel
show
came after.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Exactly. So you have to put the 1,000 words in the book. But he goes, the hardest part about writing this is, how do you write a movie where astronauts are bored in space and that's it?
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting approach to take to a long sci-fi. It's not really long, but it kind of feels long. Sci-fi
it does
movie.
Feel long because they're bored.
Yeah, they're bored,
and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. And one of them's just out in the dome for the majority of the movie, just watching the stars pass. You got a lot of the people just kind of just waiting around.
Yeah,
they do like little diaries here and there on those giant floppy disks, or the save cards or whatever. They're huge. And the way it's shot and filmed, it's almost like it's supposed to be a giant joke. They hold on it for like 4 seconds too long, just so that you can see that this is what they're doing.
What's funny is you think of it like it's supposed to be a joke like that, and it's more, I think, because when it came out, they didn't have that kind of stuff.
No.
It was a big reel of tape that was a computer thing, and but you don't know that and take it for granted, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
Absolutely. Like, I've seen floppy disks, but like, that's really as old as I get. I've never really done anything tape-wise.
Yeah.
Like cassettes here and there, but like other than that, like No.
But like when they're sending the messages back, and when we're talking about technobabble, and the one guy is talking about that problem.
Yeah.
There was some kind of radiation leakage or whatever, and it destroyed the ship's toilet paper.
Another thing I kind of think is cool is that a lot of this has a lot of that accurate science fiction or science technology wording, and like we had just gone to the moon.
Yeah,
like
we were still doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this is how they were seeing it. We were watching almost in real time how the people of that time perceived space travel and what was next to come, because this isn't like fantastical.
No, it's the exact opposite.
It's your
their quarters get ruined and they got to stay in a meat locker or a food locker, and there's spray paint and garbage all over the place.
Did your version have the bedroom scene in it?
I don't think so.
So in this, there's trivia.
See, he's talking about the Blu-ray.
I am talking about
because I watched
Blu-ray.
it on Tubi, which would have been is probably the theatrical version.
Yeah,
and you could watch it now. You watch it. That's incredible because it didn't have that crawl at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And you said the color temperature was different too.
Yeah, yours
that's
was
really
cold.
Weird.
Yours was real blue.
And I wonder. I was wondering. I didn't bother to look, but is it? Did they do that, or was it the TV?
So,
you know what I mean?
I'd like to talk about this because what's interesting is when they made this Blu-ray in that forward, this is it's the transfer from the original prints they had.
Uh-huh.
They went through a whole bunch of different ones they went off and sent out and got back up. This is the one that's closest to how they wanted you to see it.
That's cool.
It is very cool.
That is very cool.
And in the trivia, the bedroom scene, they have their three beds kind of all cramped in that meat locker, and there's that wall of
pornography.
Yeah. In this, it's all blurred out. It was always blurred out. Yeah, I guess they never even had it to show.
I was thinking, did they have to blur that? I couldn't remember, and I saw it on television anyway, so I just thought they
blurred it out.
Wow, I didn't know that. It was always blurred out.
It was always blurred out, and there's cuts of this movie where it's not even in it. Huh. They just completely cut that scene out.
That's weird.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, I saw that part. It was in there, and he's got a box full of. He's got the googly eyes.
Yeah.
And he's just so bored, he's trying to just bother the other people. Rubber chicken.
Yeah, the giant rubber chicken. See, that's the stuff that I think that this movie excels at in its comedy, is that it's real, it's relatable comedy.
Yeah.
They're not like telling these witty Harvard League jokes.
Or even jokes that wouldn't play anymore.
Yeah, they're just...
The guy's being a jerk, yeah. Everybody has that.
Everybody knows that. Everybody can relate to that. Everybody's done that.
Yeah.
So to have a movie where that's your comedy, it's kind of interesting to watch, and it's really kind of feels like it's a documentary on.
It does feel like a documentary sometimes.
Space travel, yeah, and just how it is, and that's kind of parallels with Alien, because they say the Alien movie is about truckers in space,
right?
My friend Joey at work said this movie's about the garbage men in space, and I think that's a really solid take.
It is.
Ironically,
and they obviously stopped. They wear a uniform all the time. It's probably because it's their only clothes. And but you don't picture astronauts with long hair and long beards and just being disheveled looking,
dirty, just kind of there. Another piece of trivia that was on the Blu-ray is when the ship explodes at the end. And I didn't catch it, and I tried to go back and see if I could, because there's a lot of these instances where like it's a blink and you miss it, like on the flashing screens in the computer room.
Yeah,
there's a face of it's either John Carpenter or somebody that knew. It's just like creepily smiling at you. Yeah. When the ship explodes, there's a piece of debris that says THX 1138.
Right. I didn't catch that either.
Like thank you toilet TH1138. And on the trivia it says this is a reference to another college film.
Yeah.
And they don't give any credit or anything else to that. So like if you know what that is, you know what that is. If you don't, you're like, oh, okay, that's your buddy, I guess.
Right, or you're welcome.
Yeah. because that's a pretty cool little Easter egg to put in for somebody else's movie.
Right. And which didn't do very good either. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. This movie uses those miniatures. So the bombs are made out of model tractor trailer trucks, like the 18-wheeler trucks. They take the back off of those and they just modded them out. And they look unique. They look like giant planet-destroying bombs.
They do.
And
they look giant. Sentience.
It's great. They literally have sentience, and I think that's really cool. And they took it one step farther, too, because the astronaut outfits are made out of child Kenner toy Major Mad something. What's his name?
Hang on, because I was looking that up, too.
He's apparently they're the Hasbro Cinematic Universe or Mattel Cinematic Universe
Star Team.
Yeah.
It was produced from 68 to 71. And there are obviously sized for children. I thought that too when you put that on.
His head doesn't even fit.
Right. It looks odd. Like you wouldn't. It kind of looks like the alien one too.
It does. And I'm glad you said that because I don't know if it was intentional to have this many references to your other film.
Right.
Because there are so many references to this movie that Alien almost kind of feels like it's the knockoff.
Right.
Because it's when Ripley's in the spacesuit and her head doesn't even come up to it.
Yeah.
That's
what it looks like.
You got like the big shoes to fill kind of thing or whatever, but like it's exactly like this.
Right.
And they use the kids' toys to do it. And they did that because they didn't have a big budget. So it's kind of ironic that this movie would have just so much in common with what is considered one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard
the writer wouldn't have anything to do with the sets and the costumes or anything, but they look like those ones.
Yeah, they do. And
it's O'Bannon, I think. You keep saying the wrong. Yeah.
I wrote it down, and sometimes I wrote it down too quick. I can't really read what I wrote. Thought it was O'Brien. Sorry, O'Brien. This movie also took 5 years to make.
Yeah, because they had to keep stopping. Yeah. They ran out of money.
I think that because it started in 1970.
Oh, that's what I want to say, yeah.
And ended in 75.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting, which means it came out before Star Wars did, too.
Yeah, it did.
So it's ironic.
The miniature work is really good.
Yeah.
It's just a little below Star Wars. And but it's still, a lot of times it looks great.
And they do the cool rotoscoping too, because they have the wide of the Darkstar ship.
Yeah.
And then they start zooming in on the little bubble that the technician guy's sitting in. And that all of that is, you don't really realize it now with all the green screen and the computer effects, but that stuff was innovative.
Yeah.
That was all
somebody had to really put a lot of time into that.
Yeah. A lot of time, because you're literally cutting it out and putting it into the other one.
What I was going to say, too, earlier when we were talking about the music, that song, Benson, Arizona, was written for the movie. And it's a real place in Arizona. It's a town called Benson, and they have Darkstar Road now named after because of that. Cool. Yeah. And Benson, Arizona gets mentioned in other movies, too. I forgot what they were. I think I might have copied it, but it's because of this movie, not because of actually Benson, Arizona.
Right. Another thing I noticed when watching the intro credits, the camera assistant on this film was Nick Castle, who would later go on to play Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It's all
connected.
They're friends.
And John Carpenter likes working with the same people.
Yeah, he does.
Kurt Russell.
But think about that, because you're with your buddy and you make this cheesy sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it's like Evil Dead.
Just like Evil Dead. Yeah, Sam Raimi and
Bruce Campbell.
You're just making a silly little horror movie out here in Tennessee.
Yep, out here in Tennessee.
Next thing you know, you're making Spider-Man and stuff like that. It's impressive.
It is impressive. And he had a pretty good career before Spider-Man, too, because in the late 80s or early 90s, I think it was the late 80s, he made a movie called Darkman.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi did. And it's a comic book movie before comic book movies, and it's it's the same stuff. It's really good, worth it too.
Yeah, I don't know. I always confused Darkman with somebody else. I thought Darkman was invisible. I was
it's in the name, it's dark, but no, it's pretty good.
But yeah, it's really interesting that like even Nick Castle was friends with John Carpenter. He helped him out with the camera work, and then next thing you know,
hey, you're a big tall guy.
Yeah. In that forward too, they gave you trivia questions to look out for, but then didn't give you the answer. One of these characters were played by 3 different actors.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell.
I think it was the one guy. He's like he's got an accent, and they had to overdub all of his lines.
Yeah,
because they couldn't understand him. I think it was that guy.
It might have been, and that guy. It's not confirmed, but I think John Carpenter himself is the one who's dubbing over all those lines. But yeah, they had some guy on who was 3 different people. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, because the other question was, one of these actors is completely stoned out on LSD. Can you guess who it is? And now that I'm thinking about it, I think it might have been the skipper, the frozen captain of the ship. Just how he was, just kind of just like laying there. He was frozen, but is he frozen because...
He's frozen because he was dead. Yeah. And they were talking to him because Dan O'Bannon got that idea from a Philip K. Dick book called Ubik. Ooh. And in that world, like if I died for quite a while, I could just be frozen and people would come talk to you and that kind of stuff. And that's where he got that whole idea from that.
That's pretty interesting.
It is. And people need to read Philip K. Dick. All those stories are different than the movies, and it's all worth it. Because Dan O'Bannon went on to write Total Recall too, which was based on a Philip K. Dick novel. Wow.
So he's just writing.
He's a writing fool.
Every single one of these great sci-fi stories. But yeah, he's frozen in there, and they kind of talk to him like they're reading his brainwaves. Yeah,
but it's like his spirit, or I don't know what. They don't explain it.
And he's the only one who makes it out alive at the end of it. A lot of people, when this movie came out, said it was a knockoff of Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey.
In a sense, it is.
But I think a lot of anything like this at that time period is going to be considered a ripoff of that movie.
But also having an intelligent computer that you got to try to reason with, a murderous intelligent computer that you got to try to reason with, I think that's always going to be right from 2001.
But I mean, you say that, and that's fair, but then you brought that up, the computer you got to reason with. They had this whole computer room with this lady computer and an alien. They've got a whole computer room with this lady computer that you've got to reason with. It's interesting. Like, I just think that's so cool. But yeah, I guess it's kind of a ripoff of Hal. I mean, he's got...
I don't mean a ripoff, but like an homage. They weren't...
well, they call it a ripoff.
Yeah.
They're like, you just...
I don't sound like saying ripoff if I don't think it's a ripoff.
Well, it's not even the same kind of concept, though.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, he's not murder. He's not even really murderous in this movie. He's got free will, and he's super, super, super nihilistic. Yeah. He's the only thing that's real, because the other guy said, well, how do you know anything isn't real? And he said, you're right. Thought about it, came back, he said, I'm the only thing that's real, and I'm designed to blow up. So that's what he did. They had that laser gun, too, and I'm wondering how they did that, because when it shot, nothing came out. There wasn't a flash. I know that it was a tranquil gun, like a tranquil shooter dart gun. But how did they do the zap on the wall? How did they do those kind of things? Because you didn't have
movie magic
back then. So whatever they did really did spark like that and burn up a little bit. Oh, and it's interesting. It's just interesting to look at these movies and be like, how did you do that back then?
Right. Like, I think that's interesting too. And then when you find out, it doesn't ruin it. No. It's like, wow, that's like, I don't know. I guess when you find out how to do a magic trick, right? It's still cool. I'm not going to go around making these special effects, but it doesn't ruin it for me either. It's good. I like that.
I like it too.
It adds another like layer to it.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100% wholeheartedly, because it just how innovative. Like I can talk all day about this kind of stuff, but like Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane was made in a time where like the camera was 150 pounds.
Right. It was on a tripod and you weren't moving it.
No, you were not. And what does Citizen Kane do? It has a whole bunch of moving camera shots. And they did that by literally moving the camera, digging out holes in the ground so the camera can come through. These movies, to go back and to watch them in today's day and age, really show you how far we have come in this industry. We are magicians. We are the dreamers of dreams.
And how far it hasn't come.
Right.
Because a lot of stuff is puppets now. Like the really
Still
good
puppets.
stuff is the same thing. Dig a hole so that you can get a lower angle, everything. Move the camera to make something look bigger. Or farther away, like Trip to the Moon.
Right.
That was just was it? Oh, man. Yeah, they just moved the camera forward on the moon to make it look like they were going into it.
Yeah. And that's all they did. Just simple enough to make it look real enough. Right. And that's all you need.
Yeah, all that forced perspective. Just stupid little tricks that look amazing. And when people aren't thinking about it, it's just wow.
I do want to know if Roger Corman ever watched this movie, and
I bet he did.
He spoofed on it too, because a lot of those Roger Corman cult classic sets that they put out that he basically produced kind of have a feel like this, but this has more professionalism to it.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And I wonder if this was something he either wanted to make a movie like, or if this kind of got him into the whole
space
stuff. Yeah, because he's got a lot of space stuff.
Yeah,
like Mutant and Battle Beyond the Stars and stuff like that. It's all Mutant's an Alien ripoff.
Right.
So yeah, he probably did.
Probably did, to see if he could hire somebody cheap.
You know what's funny about him is that he had a motto of, if you do a good job for me, you'll never have to work for me again.
Yeah, that's a good motto.
Yeah.
That's great. It's self-aware.
It's self-aware, and everybody worked under him. Yeah. From James Cameron to Francis Ford Coppola, everybody worked under him. It's insane how big his reach goes.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of impressed these two didn't. I don't think they had any run-ins.
They didn't have the opportunity, because they probably would have eventually.
Yeah,
if they didn't make this movie and then work with that Harris guy in and follow it up with Assault on Precinct 13 and then Alien and Halloween.
I also think it's kind of cool how the ship both seems really, really big and insanely small
at the same time. Lots of the elevator, you're like, where could that possibly be? Because that guy's on the top and it looks like almost a scooter.
Yeah.
Or some kind of go-kart he's in. So maybe they screwed that up, but who cares?
Or maybe it's bigger on the inside.
It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, yeah.
I think they used actual action figures at the very end when they're floating in space.
They might. Well,
they're very static.
They are very static, and action figures weren't that big a thing back then. So maybe the Star Team had some guys,
like,
because it's a lot of silhouette too.
It is. Yeah.
You don't have to tell that they're not
or it could
real
just
people.
Be a picture.
It could
they're
be
just moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ship also does. This and a lot of those other Star Wars things I've been watching, they all do hyperspace travel.
Yeah.
And they all do it differently.
Yeah, all differently.
And I think that's also really cool that they're not. It's all unique. It's all their own universe. It's all their own.
Because how do you don't know?
You don't know how they did it.
Right.
Because he didn't know what he was doing. He just put out this. He put a magnet next to the film and it did a weird defect, and he said, "All right, we're going with that." But when they first warp, it looked like they pulled the planet with them too. Like they zoomed out, but the planet that they were next to also zoomed out too. I was like, did they just take the planet with them?
They said, we're out of film. Just leave it.
Yeah.
Nobody will notice.
But yeah, a crazy movie that really did revolutionized a lot of sci-fi and a lot of horror.
It did, and the characters they're not the greatest characters in the world, but they're written three-dimensionally like real people. And I think that's what a lot of what sells it for me too is the actors do a good enough job conveying what they're conveying with being bored and just this is a routine BS job that we've been doing for 10 years. Well, 10 years since we last communicated with Earth.
Yeah.
Because it takes so long. And that and the camera work just made it seem it's very immersive.
Right.
And it's worth checking out. It's John Carpenter's first movie. You can see a lot of John Carpenter-ness in it.
Yes, you can.
And it is funny too. It's not that long. It's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's under an hour and a half. You can just throw it on and kind of be done with it. It's like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that.
It's entertaining.
Yeah, it is. It's cool to see a movie about astronauts in space doing the mundane stuff.
Yes.
They're not heroes.
Right.
They're not badasses.
They're not failures because that electrical storm is what causes the bomb to decide not to blow up or what they got to talk it into it. But the truckers in space thing, you can see where it came from out of this.
Yeah, and it's very, nobody does this kind of stuff. Nobody, if it's not in the Alien franchise, they're never like this. They're never just guys on a job. They're never, it's not new to them. They're like, oh, well, we're going to do this space adventure.
Yeah.
It's never like, all right, well, we got to tow this ship back to Earth now. It's nothing like that. And it's interesting to have a sci-fi spectacle be just mundane people doing mundane things, talking about mundane conversations. And how it just works that way. Like they're eating they don't explain anything.
Chicken again.
Yeah.
Chicken. Oh, we're having ham. And then what is this chicken? And it's a tube of liquid.
It's just and they're just sucking on it.
Yeah.
Little details that do a lot of legwork exploring the world because it's so relatable to us.
That's really a testament to Dan O'Bannon's writing.
Yeah.
Because he writes it too. He started writing Alien after this because he didn't like the way some of the things went.
Right.
And then you see those characters when they're just sitting around and Yaphet Kotto's trying to get more money.
Yeah.
Even though he signed up for this much money, he wants more money because he's not getting as much as it's normal shit that people do all the time. It's like we're being a trucker in space, working on a factory in space. It just happens to take place in space.
Yeah. All of this could have been here. It just so happened to be up there.
Right.
But yeah, I would suggest it. It wasn't too bad in terms of like, because there's not a lot of excitement.
Some things are bad movies, and this is not one of them.
This isn't. It's really not. Especially with being a movie as dry as it is. Mm-hmm. It's good to watch. It's a good watch.
It is.
Especially
it really is.
How I did it was just on a Friday night with a couple of the people you like and a pizza, and like there you go.
Right. That's a good way to watch this kind of movie.
Exactly.
Oh, when I was looking up stuff about it, they had a term for it, and I didn't bother looking at it because I'm like, yeah, well, nobody, blah blah blah. But you're right. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Is that if you got people around, you're talking or whatever, you're not missing anything. Nope. And you're not going to forego the social element of it for the movie either. It's perfect like that.
It's perfect. It's a perfect like I could imagine this movie being like the VHS at the Blockbuster. You're like, oh, they got Darkstar. Let's go watch this. And then you have your popcorn, you have your fun time, and you throw it at the TV or you cheer when the ship blows up. It's one of those kind of just spoofy recreational movies. Yeah. Another film I think they might want to look into remaking. I think this is a cool idea that you could totally play around with.
Yeah, just take the premise of it. These people go around blowing up things and then make it more modern. And by modern, I mean like you don't need a big giant spool of tape for your computer,
right?
But modern like that, like modern problems that would occur with being
an astronaut in space,
and astronaut has being a trucker in space, because astronauts are astronauts,
ironically has a level of like respect to it, because I mean technically they are astronauts.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are,
but they're not astronauts in the way that we think of an astronaut.
They're not Neil Armstrong and James Lovell or anything like that.
And this one kind of answered a question I always had, like when they do these movies with all the flashing buttons and all that kind of stuff, I think about like, well, what is that? Where do you find that? How do you buy that?
Yeah,
they're ice trays.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I'm like, we're not going to get to that. They're lit from behind ice cube trays.
Yeah, that's so clever to do.
It is. And the only other thing you could do, which you couldn't really do back then, is go to a junkyard and just start getting parts and stuff like that. Or I don't even know if they have them anymore. Radio Shack. And just get electronic looking things, because they don't really do anything.
No, they just set them into like a
ice cube trays that were lit from behind.
And it's cool because when I was doing stuff at college, I worked with like a switcher, a video switcher, that has a lot of those buttons on it too, that look just like this stuff. Yeah. And I was like, what, did I just get stuff like? Where do you get stuff like that? Well, you get an ice tray. Yeah. You light it from back.
You get it from your imagination.
Boom. Yeah, and it's just the imagination. And it's this imagination that sparks things to come. So, honestly, it's up there with a lot of, like, The Wizard of Oz, ironically. Like, it's revolutionary in so ways that you look over it just because, it's a movie from this past time. Yeah. But if you really sit down and you watch exactly what is going on in this movie, you can see how we do stuff now is because of how we did stuff in this movie.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Which might be the best compliment this movie ever got.
Probably.
But yeah, I recommend it. It's got a lot of dynamic everything. It's pretty good. And the audio... mastering in this movie was also really well done. Yeah. Like, you can tell that they had whatever microphone they could have at the time.
Right. Probably got it from the college. They just borrowed it.
But it's not too bad. It's not distracting at all. Like,
no,
I'm
not
like,
at all.
Oh, God, please stop talking.
Yeah. And I can't hear this. Or,
right. I can't understand what they're saying.
It sounds like they're in a big hall.
Exactly.
It does sound good.
It does.
And the music that goes along with it, too, sounds really good.
Music sounds really good. You know, I wonder where they get the space backgrounds for a lot of this stuff. Because
this has a good space background, too. But I saw the Star Trek The Next Generation was a TV show.
Yeah. I forgot that Star Trek was a TV show before.
Yeah. And they just had a round thing with lights in it that turned really slowly. It was round so they could just keep using it.
Right.
And it looked like when it's going past the window, the stars are going
they're going past the stars. That's
just clever stuff like that.
Like, how do you think of that? Yeah. How do you just think of that? That's so impressive. But like, if you got nothing else to do and you have to find a way to do it,
or that's your hobby is just figuring out cool. Like, look at this castle thing I made out of garbage.
Yeah.
Or you're like Phil Tippett and you make Mad God. After 30 years, you release it.
It's a very lonely movie.
It is, and you really get that.
You do,
but you're supposed to.
Yeah,
it's good. I like this movie. It's a good one.
It's kind of you feel like you're tagging along with them.
Yeah,
it does feel like that, and it's for being a college film. That's impressive.
Yeah,
and B, for being a movie with no money, no named actors, no nothing. These are your buddies.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It is.
Because none of the acting's bad. I buy every single thing that they're doing. They feel like you just put the camera down, left the room, came back at the end of the day, and edited whatever that footage was.
It does.
So, if you ever in the market for Darkstar, I would 100% suggest you take your afternoon and you watch. Not even your afternoon, just take an hour and you watch it.
Right.
It gets the seal of approval from me.
Yeah, definitely for me too. And I think you could check it off your cult classic list because it's on there.
It's on there, and it's not. There's a lot of those cult classic movies are a cult classic for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a cult classic for a reason, but not that same reason.
Right. Because Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a cult classic.
Yeah, and that's good too.
It is very good. And I think this is kind of more along the lines of that, where it's a good movie that wasn't really received well at the time.
And they had to instead of using money, they had to use
their brain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would 100% recommend this to anybody who likes sci-fi, who likes Alien, who likes John Carpenter movies, who likes black comedies. Not black comedies as in
dark comedies.
Yeah, dark comedies. Like After Hours. After Hours is a dark comedy too, and Lord, is it a trip.
Yes.
I think those movies really should get a category of their own. They shouldn't be called dark comedies. They should just be called like a trip through hell or something, because there's something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would give this movie Darkstar a solid 3 out of 5.
Yeah, definitely solid 3 out of 5.
I've got the Blu-ray. It wasn't very expensive. It's available on Amazon.
I watched it on Tubi.
You can watch it on Tubi for free.
It's all over the place all the time.
And you know what? You might want to do both, because we pointed out, there's a lot of differences between the two. Even down to the color matching, which I found to be very common. I was streaming Terminator 2 on Vudu, and it was very blue. I put the Blu-ray in, not as blue. There's a lot of...
They do that a lot of times. I've noticed that too, and probably most people don't give a crap
most people
about that.
Don't care.
But I noticed it too. When Terminator 2 was on TBS this morning, I was watching that. Not so blue.
Yeah,
it was nice. Well, the blue parts there was blue in it. It's not, they didn't erase it, but it wasn't obnoxious or noticeable that there was something different.
Well, the stream I was watching, the future stuff where it's got that blue tint over it, that was like you were in the ocean blue. Like it was deep blue.
Wow.
And in recent times, there's been controversy about the 4K of The Thing being not as blue as the VHS was, which was what they thought the 4K transfer was from, and it's not. It's from the actual film that they transferred it. This is what it would have looked like in the movie theater. You've been watching it on VHS and DVD, because the DVD transfer was from the VHS. So when they finally did the 4K go back to it, it doesn't look the same. I got a lot of backlash for it. I got the 4K.
Did you see the 4K one?
I've seen the stills from it. I've got it on YouTube where they have the comparisons.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And it's like black and white.
Wow. I'm going to check that
out. I've got Halloween, another John Carpenter movie, where they have 2 versions of it. They've got it says the 4K theatrical thing, but then it has a transfer name on it. And the Blu-ray that has a different transfer name on it.
Wow.
Because they're lit differently. But I mean, it's cool that you have the other option,
right?
So if you could, and it doesn't look bad
hard
ever.
Do I want to watch it the way I've known it, or the way he wanted it?
Exactly.
Because I would prefer the way he wanted it,
right?
But I might
it's kind of like watching a whole new movie.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that hopes they do that with Star Wars 2. I don't think they ever will, but you release the theatrical releases of those movies.
Yeah, I don't know if those, now that you mention it, because there's DVDs that have the special edition and the theatrical one, and I didn't notice any kind of color temperature change in them. But is it from the one they did for the VHS, or is it the one they did originally? Yeah,
right. It's
something to look into.
Yeah, it's just a cool little behind the scenes thing that you wouldn't really acknowledge.
No, and it could be a cool little thing or something new to bitch about.
Yeah,
you get both things.
But I've been Cheese Film,
and I'm Hecubus,
and this has been The Dark Corner.